Welcome to Movies Are Life. I'm your host, Nathan Chandler. Happy 2024, everybody. I hope everybody has had a great holiday season, had a great Christmas, a great New Year's. We had a fun little party ourselves, and we are kind of recovering today. I'm recording this on New Year's as I'm speaking, and a little tired today, but this episode's going to be a little different. We're just going to revisit 2 episodes from the past. I am taking a little break and kind of getting the schedule down for this year. A lot of exciting stuff upcoming. I mean, a lot of fun movies. I think with the actor strike being over and also the writer strike, that there probably should be a lot of great content coming out this year. But also we have 18 movies left on the rom-com list, so a little over halfway, and there are some really great movies on the list that we haven't got into yet, so I'm super excited to revisit those. So I thought that this episode is going to be a revisit of 2 shorter episodes that we had, and I was thinking about the year 2023, and undoubtedly the 2 big movies were Barbie and Oppenheimer. Barbenheimer, as everyone came to know it as. And it was funny that Barbie ended up as my top movie of 2023. And Mark Blitch, who is on our top 10 films of 2023 episode, his top film was Oppenheimer. So I thought it was a good chance to catch up and look back on those. Barbie dropped on Max, so I know a lot of people got a chance to finally see that if they had it. And Oppenheimer as well, as you can rent that. So it's definitely 2 films that will definitely be talked about come award season. I think the Golden Globes is next Sunday, which is crazy. We'll probably hit on that a little bit and just kind of our thoughts about that. We love award shows around here, and Whitney will usually definitely have something to say about that. So I'm really excited about the upcoming year. I hope you enjoy this conversation. And once again, don't forget to listen to our past episodes, top 10 movies, top 10 TV shows. Those are always a lot of fun to do. And throughout this break, I've heard from a lot of people like, oh, I checked this out because you mentioned it, or I checked out Jury Duty because you mentioned it. So those are always some of my favorite episodes to record. So I hope you take the time to listen back on those as you're getting into the work season and everything coming up for this new year. So we're super excited about things to come. As always, tell your friends about the podcast, and we'll jump into my conversation with Ann Schafer about Barbie. And then after that, we'll jump into my conversation with Charles Mills about Oppenheimer. All right, everybody, have a great 2024.
Hey, Barbie. Can I come to your house tonight?
Sure. I don't have anything big planned, just a giant blowout party with all the Barbies and planned choreography and a bespoke song. You should stop by.
So cool.
Barbie, came out this summer, 2023. It's a fantasy comedy film directed by Greta Gerwig and written by Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. Based on the Barbie fashion dolls by Mattel, it is the first live-action Barbie film after numerous computer-animated direct-to-video and streaming television films. I have to take a quick little pause there.
You're good.
I don't know if you ever seen any of the Barbie shows?
No, actually, you know what? People have asked me that a lot, and I was like, I haven't actually seen any of the animated ones. I see clips of them on like TikTok and whatnot, but I hadn't, seen any of them. I might have seen them when I was younger, but I have no recollection. I was more focused on playing with the Barbies than watching them.
Yeah. So my girls haven't watched them in a long time, and also I'll say they're not necessarily like huge Barbie fans, and we can talk about that a little bit. But the show is like existed on Netflix, and they're like almost like short little 10-minute episodes and vignettes and stuff.
Gotcha.
They're actually, as far as like kids entertainment goes, very, very funny. Like it
I love
always
that.
Yeah, it had this very dry sense of humor, and I think I can't help but think that Gerwig maybe like saw some of these to get like a tone she could go for. But
A little inspired,
anyway, yeah. But if people don't know, this film stars Margot Robbie as Barbie and Ryan Gosling as Ken, and follows the 2 on a journey of self-discovery following an existential crisis. The film also features an ensemble cast. So over the weekend, it gained $162 million in its first weekend of release. Barbie also marks the biggest debut ever for a film directed by a woman, which is really, really cool. I guess, like, what made you want to see this movie?
Yeah, I'm a Barbie girl through and through. So I grew up playing with Barbies, like all my neighbors. I mean, everybody played Barbies with me. I've been a Barbie girl forever. And then fun fact about me is that I also collect Barbie ornaments. So my Christmas tree this year is going to be very trendy because I literally, watching, you're talking about the marketing earlier. I was watching Margot Robbie on the red carpet and I was like, oh, I have that Barbie in an ornament. I have that outfit in an ornament. So we'll have to wait till December, but my tree is going to be very on brand for this year. But yeah, I love Barbie. I love the cast that they have. I love Greta as a director, and so as soon as I heard there was going to be a Barbie movie, you didn't have to tell me who was in it, but I was like, yeah, I'm in. Count me in for sure.
Yeah, I knew, because I've been a big fan of Greta's, and then because we're on a first name basis and everything,
right?
But but also Noah Baumbach. I haven't seen all his films, but I really like, even though maybe some of his movies don't completely work all the time, I always like his tone and like what he's going for. And I was like, when it first was announced that they were the ones doing this movie, I was very perplexed. Not so much for Greta's end, but definitely Baumbach's end, because his movies are usually pretty serious and deep. But I really don't know why I doubted them, because I really liked this movie a lot. And almost so much so because I've loved comedies, and I think people are almost discounting everybody says like, so how funny this movie is, but I think it's also very challenging in a lot of ways. And I think people have forgotten about how hard it is to create a movie like that, but also a movie that people collectively find funny. That's really hard to do these days, I think.
Yeah, especially with like the social commentary of it all. I think that some people can get really like, oh, can I laugh at this or can I not, about those types of movies? But, I think Greta Gerwig was on point when she said that she really wanted to make a film for everyone, that everyone would enjoy, because, they have some high level jokes in there that you might not understand unless you're like thinking about this work and talking about cognitive dissonance and some other things, but they also have some really basic, just funny things that happen that really anybody can enjoy, and also kind of starts a conversation for all ages to think about. I a friend of mine said their kid walked out and was like, what's the patriarchy? Asking that question as they walked out, and it's like, well, that's going to start a conversation for sure. And so it's nice to have that kind of in a presented in a fun way, but also, adding to that deepness and that depth of the content as well.
Yeah. So Whitney's parents joined us on this adventure, which added to the layer of her being mad at me that we went and saw this.
The whole family, but you.
She was out of town. So, but like, even afterwards, we were talking about it, and her dad was like, man, they really went into some like deep things there. And I said, I almost feel like we have just like left a college course about gender dynamics, but it was taught by the coolest professor.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Well, it's funny. I'm actually teaching an Intro to Women and Gender Studies course this fall, and I'm scrapped the syllabus. It's going to center around Barbie, because I think it's a really, I want to be cool like that, to really have those conversations, and really that really starting that like thing of like, oh, this is like able for everybody to understand about how things impact them, and the world impacts them if you look at it from a different lens.
Right. And I enjoy that it's actually pretty shocking. I feel like that such a big corporation, and Mattel is a corporation, was allowed basically these filmmakers to have the stance that they have and be basically unapologetic about it. But also I think I honestly think this like in a respectful way. And even if maybe I can see a lot of people definitely not agreeing with a lot of the viewpoints, but even me myself, who I consider myself a feminist, and this movie actually challenged me in a lot of ways, even being a male, and just being like, just kind of calling myself out on just a thought process on a lot of, just the things that I naturally go to because of the world that we live in.
Right. Yeah, I think that was really interesting because I know I saw a lot of commentary prior to me seeing it of from some, right wing conservative people who have viewed it, said it's very anti men and, really kind of teaches things. And I thought it was the exact opposite. I think
Yeah.
it talked about, how patriarchy is also harmful to men. And I think one of the most interesting things that I saw recently when I was scrolling on TikTok was this idea that, not to spoil things in the movie, but when women are in charge, they just want everybody to be able to live how they want to live. But when men are in charge, they're asking women to do things for them. And so it's this like weird thing of like, oh, people, view this like all women leadership as like, well, that's, reverse sexism or some other, term. But in actuality, when they were running, Barbie Land, it was, everybody got to do what they wanted to do and could exist as they were. And it was not the same when the Kens took over.
Yeah, I didn't view it as anti-male at all, but more so just, basically I liked it because the movie, like, Greta Gerwig is taking this concept and she's challenging us, but instead of just like throwing it out there with all the problems, it's like,
Right.
hey, we've called it out. So where are you going to go from here? And
Yeah.
that's what I liked about it. I didn't think it was like anti-male at all.
I think the
Yeah.
exact opposite. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think it really kind of showed the ways that people, even Ken didn't want to be in that kind of world where he wanted to figure out who he was by himself and not as an attachment to somebody else. So
yeah, exactly what you said. It's just the movie celebrates tapping into the things that make you the person that you are, and defining yourself that way versus who your partner is, no matter who,
right.
no matter what side you're on. And so that's why, it's just, to me, I just think that's really fun. But if anything, I mean, it's poking. I think it pokes fun at females just as much as males.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it definitely has that conversation of like, the idea of stereotypical Barbie and like what she is, and like, but at the same time, like it really kind of unpacks like the societal expectations. But like you said, it kind of starts a conversation that people are gonna think about after they're done with Barbie. And if they think that it's shallow or too deep or whatever opinions they have, it means that they didn't really pay attention. I think it's funny. People are talking about like, oh, like I'm gonna treat this like film bros treat Fight Club. It's like, oh, I know you saw the movie. If you just say you didn't like it, you just really didn't understand it. And kind of having that mindset, which is the kind of the energy I'm going to take through the rest of time. So
quickly, I want to talk about the performances because I mean, great cast all around, but
absolutely.
But definitely Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, I think, do an amazing job. Like, so good. Did you like the performances?
I did. It was interesting because I think a lot of people had some questions about Ken being too old to play, like with Ryan Gosling being too old to play Ken, which I think is so funny because it also, that's usually what women get when they're cast as like, oh, they're too old to play, a hot, attractive, whatever it may be. And so the fact that that was kind of turned on Ryan Gosling, I thought was really interesting. But Margot Robbie, wow, she I haven't seen a lot of things she's in. I'm not like a big Wolf of Wall Street or things like that, but what you could tell that the kind of shift from when she was just stereotypical Barbie and had that kind of like, I would say like kind of vapid like attitude towards things to where she really kind of got that acknowledgement of like having feelings and emotions and what the world was. But I think the standout performance has to be America Ferrera, because I kind of forgot she was in the movie. I saw her on the press tour, but I didn't see her a lot in trailers. And so when she came in, and obviously her monologue in the middle is going to be unpacked, but I think that we talk a lot about like, oh, Ryan Gosling is really getting a lot of things for his performance as Ken, but I think the women took it home. I think Margot Robbie and America Ferrera really shined like throughout the whole thing and really kind of showed some really excellent acting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Margot Robbie, I've actually probably seen a lot of the stuff that she's done. She was recently in Babylon, which is, I will definitely say, not a movie for everyone. But regardless of what you would come out of that movie, regardless of how you feel about it, is that she was amazing in it. And then she was awesome in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and like almost anything that I've seen her in, she does great. And I think a lot was put on her, in this, and she's always done like comedic beats in other films before, but
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, this is definitely a comedy, but there are some genuinely like kind of, I would say, heartbreaking moments. And
absolutely. I
when
cried.
yeah, and when she's crying on screen, like it's a genuine moment. It's not meant like for laughs and stuff like that.
Right.
And yeah, it's pretty incredible that uh they kind of went up and down, like, with this roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely cried a lot. I was like, I think, everybody's like, oh, it's bubbly, it's fun. But oh man, I was sobbing at the end, and the music and the montage towards the end of all the family and friends of the cast and crew was it was beautiful. It's moving. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Well, definitely high praise from us. I think we did a really good job talking about this movie without actually talking about like specific
I'm trying not to
scenes
spoil it. I know. I'm
or
like,
or spoil it or anything like that. So I highly recommend it. Myself, I rate movies from a 1 to 5 star scale. What would you rate this movie?
5. I gotta tell you that I added it to my letterbox favorite movies immediately after seeing it. I was like, this is number one. So I would give it a 5.
Well, you're on Letterbox. I can't believe we're like don't
Oh yeah,
follow
I'm a
each other.
letterbox
Oh,
for
okay.
sure.
Okay, I'll have to find you on there. But yeah, I'm the same as well. I feel like with any comedies, they become a little easier to nitpick. I think sometimes because tapping into like everybody has a different sense of humor and like what makes
Yeah.
them laugh and stuff like that. But like I mentioned earlier, I think to pull off what they did with this like as a comedy, and it made me really happy as a dad with the younger kids that this type of movie
Yeah.
was out for them. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and even though they probably didn't get everything that this movie is unpacking, it's at least, it really is. It's cliche to say, but you leave the theater with you kind of see the world a little differently, I think, after
Yeah,
seeing this
absolutely.
movie. So, I mean, I won't be able to see like, I think, a stallion in the same way, or if the
Yeah,
god,
I know. My whole
yeah,
idea of horses is kind of ruined.
yeah. I will say I've never personally thought about horses that much. I'm actually kind of afraid of horses, but
Oh,
definitely some of the things that they touch on as far as The Godfather and other things like that.
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Godfather. Like I
yeah,
just
yeah, it's great stuff. So, well, anything else you want to add before we sign off?
Oh my gosh. All I say was that just Barbie was better than Oppenheimer. Well, Oppenheimer was great. Barbie took the cake for me, and I think everybody should see it, no matter what you live life as. I think that it's enjoyable for literally everybody.
We imagine a future. And our imaginings horrify us. They won't fear it until they understand it.
Oppenheimer is a epic biopic thriller written and directed by Christopher Nolan. It's based on the 2005 Pulitzer Prize winning biography American Prometheus, and the film chronicles the career of American theoretical physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer. The story predominantly focuses on Oppenheimer's early studies, his direction of the Manhattan Project during World War II, and his eventual fall from grace due to his 1954 security hearing. Cillian Murphy stars as the title character. Emily Blunt plays his wife Kitty. There's also roles played by Matt Damon, Robert Downey Jr., Florence Pugh, and then just tons of faces. You'll probably be like, "Wait, I know this person. Wait, I didn't know he was in this. I didn't know she was in this." I think it's kind of fun to almost be surprised with some of those. So, so I think I saw this, but you saw this movie on opening weekend, right?
I did.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see it in the IMAX 70 millimeter, because I believe there's only like 13 theaters in the world that can show it that way, or something. And it is sold out, still sold out. It's sold out so far weeks in advance. I'm like, I can't. So I ended up seeing it in just a regular theater, which I was bummed about that. Having said that, though, I like this movie a lot. And I would want to go see it again if I ever get a chance in the IMAX 70. But yeah, no, I saw it opening weekend, and I mean, I know of the man roughly, and I know I know he was kind of after the whole bomb. I know he was kind of ostracized a little bit. That was the extent that I knew of it.
Yeah.
And I knew that Einstein had helped, but again, I didn't know much of it. So what's amazing to me is that you mentioned it's a thriller, and it's exciting in a lot of ways, and it probably more than it has any right to be, because it's a pretty, I don't know. It's not, I wouldn't say it's slow. I've heard a lot of people describe it as slow, but I mean, there's not like a lot of action that happens there. It's a 3-hour dialogue heavy movie.
Yes.
But it's kind of the culmination of Christopher Nolan's career. I'm not going to say it's his best movie, but it's like hit all of the style that he's been inventing over the years.
Mm-hmm.
In Memento, using the black and white to show a different timeline, and in Dunkirk, mixing and cutting across times.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool seeing it all come together. And that's what makes this movie particularly interesting, is the way it's put together, how time is just, you're in and out of time all over the place. And sometimes with very minimal differences between, the characters, the way they look and all that, you're bouncing around all over the place, but it somehow is coherent.
Yes.
I don't know if you felt the same way.
Yeah, you said it. It's almost like you read my mind. Yeah, you're right. This movie just kind of is a culmination of just everything that he's done. It's kind of led up to this point. And yes, it's dialogue heavy, but I didn't think it was slow at all. In fact, I'd be almost a little interested to see how long the longest scene is that plays out, because he is going back and forth all the time. And I think it's almost recognizing that this, I'm not like a sciencey guy, but he does a really good job, because this movie is full of science jargon, and it's almost like he's utilizing these editing techniques to move the story along. And he, even though really, I mean, this is kind of, even if like I didn't know all the details, I really didn't know much about Oppenheimer, the man, but we have some historical context of the atom bomb in World War II. I didn't know all the details, but also he does a good job with this technique of, you in a way don't know where things are going, even though we have a very like we know who wins the war, but there's still, right, I would say, a moment in this movie where you're still kind of on the edge of your seat about like what's going to happen, And so I think he does a masterful job of that. I mean, I do think this movie is playing off a lot of the success of Barbie. So a lot of people, made a weekend out of it, which I think is great. I mean, people going to movies and seeing, these original stories, so to speak, not necessarily based on a comic book character or anything like that. But it just almost tickles me to think that people
tickles your pink.
Yes. Yeah. That this movie is doing so well because, it's sciencey, it's 3 hours long, but it makes me happy that people are embracing this film, because even though I'd probably agree with you that I don't think this is his best film, but it's also the one I'm so glad he's taken on this type of material.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking that when you were talking about the money of it, like I think outside of the Batman trilogy, this is his highest grossing movie.
Wow.
So, which is crazy considering he's had such big hits,
Yeah.
Inception and was Tenet a hit? I can't remember if Tenet actually was a hit or not. I know that was kind of came out during the pandemic.
It was, yeah, it came out. Yeah, that one. It might have broke some records just for the year, just because
right.
It might have been the only movie that was actually out in the theaters at the time. But yeah.
But what's cool also about it is the fact that he's shooting this movie with these IMAX cameras, and I know that's kind of become just like buzzwords to a lot of people, but I don't think people fully understand, because IMAX, a lot of times it's just a movie that's blown up to IMAX or whatever. He's shooting, this is film. This is not digital. He's shooting on large format film. And for this movie in particular, Kodak had to create black and white IMAX film. That wasn't converted in post, that he shot it in black and white. And when you think about that, it's kind of crazy that it's a dialogue-driven drama that was shot on these large format cameras.
Yeah.
You know, it's wild. And the fact that he also, I believe he claimed that he has no computer generated imagery in the movie, that he used, you know, obviously he removed stuff in post, stuff like that, but there's nothing like created like in, you know, in 3D, and then, you know, even the bomb, the explosion was done practically. So it's kind of amazing, but it just strikes me as very crazy that like they're inventing like new technology for this movie. And there is part of me that's like, did it need it? Like, did it need this like giant format black and white? I don't know. I don't know. It's a case for that. It's like, I love it though, because, you know, if I could ever go and see it in an IMAX 70 millimeter screening, I would love to. I don't know if it needed to be shot this way, but it was beautiful. And
it was beautiful, yeah.
And I really appreciate someone shooting black and white as black and white, and not just, you know, like there was intent behind that.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Robert Downey Jr., I think, stole the show, personally.
He did.
And I think he will win an Oscar for this, for supporting actor.
He really gets to chew on the scenery in this movie, but you know, it is fun to see him. I mean, he's always been a great actor, but I'm glad he was, you know, it's been a while since he's been given a role that plays off his strengths so well.
And you heard that interview that he was, he talked about, he was kind of taking a shot at Marvel a little bit, because he was basically saying that he hasn't really like stretch his acting muscle in so long, having played all the Marvel stuff, and that he had kind of forgotten like how to play outside of like the Iron Man stuff. Like he kind of got into that, you know, almost sounded like he was kind of coasting along, which I thought he was fantastic in all the Marvel movies. I really did. But basically Christopher Nolan had to kind of like really coax it out of him to get you know, a great performance that is nothing like Iron Man. But I really do think he'll win an Oscar for it, because his, and so I also think, how do you say his name? Is it Cillian?
Yeah, Cillian Murphy. Yes.
Yeah. So I think Cillian will also win Best Actor.
I thought he was wonderful.
he was. But having said that, I really think Robert Downey Jr.'s character is what drives the narrative. Like it was just fascinating, and Matt Damon was great too. I think Matt Damon's kind of the humor of this, and a lot of the dialogue in his scenes was very like Social Network style. It was like there was a lot of like really fast rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat, really like witty dialogue that I loved. But yeah, I think Robert Downey Jr. Again, I don't want to get into spoilers of it, but the role that he was tasked to play could have been so one-dimensional and you know, just weird and not memorable. And instead, it's like it is the narrative device, the way they used him, and like I loved it.
And I really liked Cillian Murphy a lot, because he almost, it kind of in a weird way kind of reminded me of a Daniel Plainview from There Will Be Blood.
Oh yeah, I saw that too.
And that one was, you know, that obviously that role is, I mean, just super memorable and way over the top. And this is a very different performance, and it could have easily gotten into that territory, but he plays him, you know, I just thought we could really like see how his thought process changed over the years of his life, you know. So he's this brash, cocky dude, and how he starts really kind of finally digesting the effects of all their work, you know. And so I think you could really see that like over time, the way he stays the same person, but but kind of develops and morphs like over time. I thought it was really, really good.
I had read somewhere that like people were kind of upset because it was like they thought they were making a martyr out of this guy that made the bomb and killed so many like Japanese people, which obviously there's a lot of weight in this movie about that. But but I didn't see them as making a martyr out of him. In fact,
I didn't either.
I feel like they went out of their way to make him a kind of a bad guy, especially early on. Like one of the first scenes with him is like he's where was he at? Cambridge, wherever he was at. He's like, he tries to poison his teacher because his teacher kind of gives him a hard time. And it's like, wow, okay, so that's your like introduction to this character. It's like, you're not making him look good there. And then And then when he comes home and his kid is screaming and his wife's upset, like his first thought is to give away his kid.
Yeah.
I mean, as a parent, like those two scenes, the poisoning a teacher and giving away your kid, it's like at first I was like, I'm not going to be able to connect with this guy at all. They're making him out to be almost a monster, like something wrong with him, and then I was thinking maybe that's the way his mind worked. So I do not think they're putting him in a good light. Now they do show the brilliance of him and all of that, but they do show, like you said, it's the changes that he goes through, and he does realize the error of his ways, but he was just almost so arrogant in his pursuit. And then not only that, but it's like the government's kind of pushing him to do it too, because they don't want the Nazis to get the bomb before them. So,
right. Yeah.
But I think they kind of showed him warts and all. I do not think they tried to downplay his bad qualities. Which is interesting. It's a very interesting take on him.
Yeah. And I agree with you as well. And I thought that, I think the powerful thing about this story is just this moral quandary that it presents, and they even recognize, what a devastating effect that this bomb will have. But, you have it juxtaposed with like, well, the Germans have been working on this like for a long time. So like kind of one of those, like, if we don't do it, somebody will, and
right.
That'll affect us, and that'll affect certainly for him, affecting his heritage and his Jewish background and everything. He did change, trying to redeem himself, I think as best as he could, but I don't think it was still glorifying what he did. I thought it was perfectly posed. He was just kind of doing like what he could, and so and I thought, I mean, I still, even when the movie finished, even though this is something that we've like always have talked about with history and just the effects of things, and I would say I'm more of a pacifist than a lot of other people, and it really brings these like lots of feelings and stuff. But then it's also mired with this, this movie is essentially also a political thriller in the sense of like, oh gosh, politics just skewers all of this. So
what was funny about the political aspect of it, I mean, funny to me, is that I actually didn't know the difference between the A bomb and the H bomb. So when I assumed they were the same thing. I've heard it. I just thought they were interchangeable. And so when they're talking in the movie, I'm like, well, what is he talking about? He doesn't want to make the hydrogen bomb, the H bomb. And I'm like, what? And so that was one of those things I had to actually come home and look it up. And so it's like, and then I was like, okay, did we ever end up using an H bomb in war? And it turns out that they were made, despite Oppenheimer not wanting to make them, but they have never been used. No country has ever used an H bomb, a hydrogen bomb in war. So in some ways, I would say that he's probably should be given credit for that. I mean, I know there's the whole mutually assisted destruction or mutually assured destruction, but it's just fascinating to me that like this one atomic bomb, and then now there's all these other much bigger bombs out there. A hydrogen bomb is much bigger than an atomic bomb, and they have not been used in all the years since they were made, which was, so it's an interesting thing, because it's not like far away history. We're still in the middle of this kind of thing, and it's like, yeesh. Especially with everything going on in Russia now, and knowing that the Soviet Union, or Russia, which Putin's trying to kind of rebuild the Soviet Union, it seems like, but knowing all that, and knowing that they have hydrogen bombs and we have hydrogen bombs, and I don't know.
Yeah, that's
kind of scary.
That's a good way.
Not kind of scary. It's extremely scary.
Yeah. That's kind of a good way to sum up how you feel after this film is, yeesh. You're just like, whoo. Yeah, for sure. Well, I one thing I just want to quickly say is that, and I think Nolan, he's been criticized a lot with how he writes female characters, and you could kind of, I think he was really trying to solve that with this film. I still don't think he quite stuck the landing. My kind of one big critique, I thought Emily Blunt was really misused in this movie. And so, but and she plays a big part, certainly at the end. But I didn't think up to that point she had necessarily earned the action that she takes. But that was kind of my one little, like, the movie so shifts after, kind of I would say probably the last 45 minutes to an hour. And I thought it was good, but all of a sudden it kind of felt like Nolan was really kind of telling us how to feel during everything, when up to that point I felt like we were still getting to kind of decide for ourselves.
She was okay. I mean, I don't know if maybe you just liked her more than I did. I didn't think she was bad, but the scene I love though, and it's kind of a weird scene, is when they're like having her being confronted with the whole, like, the affair, like, and she's in that, and the way they visualize that, and it's a very interesting way to do that. Like, it's like putting all their dirty laundry out for the public to see and go on the record. I thought that was a really interesting moment, the way Nolan decided to do that. What did you think of Florence Pugh?
Well, she threw me off guard a little bit because I didn't know she was in the movie. Strangely enough, I know you could just go on IMDb and see all these things, but I like to kind of go in, pretty fresh and stuff like that. And so she's one of my favorite actresses. And so we saw a lot more of her than I was expecting, for sure. Yeah. And so the person literally next to me covered their eyes. And so in the theater, but I mean, I thought she was really effective in her role. I always think she's really good.
Can I mention one spoiler? Can we give a spoiler alert? Because there's something I do want to ask you. Are you okay with that?
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
So there's a sequence where spoiler. There's a sequence where it's a flashback to her, dying in the bathtub.
Yeah.
I took away that she had committed suicide, right? I don't know if that's what you took out of it, but apparently people have said that in one shot of the movie there's a like a black leather gloved hand pushing her head down.
I kind of wondered that. I did see that, and for a second I was kind of like, wait, did he basically help her, assist her in killing herself?
So I did not notice it, and I don't know how I didn't, apparently, but there have been there's so much speculation on it. People were saying that, was it like his perspective and he's like blaming himself for it happening and it's like his hand? Other people said that it's the same kind of glove that the agents who were going through their trash earlier wore. And so the implication there is that the government killed her.
Oh, huh. Interesting.
And so I started researching that a little bit, and it's like there is that conspiracy theory, and it's been out there for a long time, like that may have been how she was killed. So it's another thing. I want to rewatch it again.
Interesting.
Speaking of that, I saw it at a theater where they were serving food, and that was probably one of the times when one of the waiters walked in front. But during the countdown of the bomb, that's when a waiter came and like asked me a question. I'm like looking around, I'm like, they're counting the bomb. This is 2 hours into the movie, man. Like, I'm trying to like look around. I'm like, I already gave you my card.
Oh man,
anyway, there's like several things I know I need to rewatch.
That's a really interesting theory. Like I didn't take it necessarily that he actually physically had done it, but when he was just imagining what happened, he kind of thought like he was the cause, the cause for it and stuff like that. But that's interesting as far as the government agency, because I mean the movie is very clear on how, I mean, he was followed and monitored constantly, so I wouldn't put it past anybody
it's just such a weird the way I'm understanding that shot is like it was just one like quick shot, but that it just sold this idea that it wasn't exactly a suicide. So that's really interesting to me.
Well, so I was kind of looking back around this time. We had recorded our discussion about Everything Everywhere All at Once. And during that podcast, we had predicted that it would win Best Picture. I feel like, I mean, it's still early. There's still a lot of things to come out in the fall, but I think we both agree that this will garner a lot of nominations. You already talked about Downing's performance, and I think a lot of people will be, I think technically this will be nominated for a lot of things like editing and production design, costume design. I thought the makeup was really good as well.
Cinematography.
Yeah, cinematography. Do you think this movie will win Best Picture?
I can't even think of what else will be nominated, but yes, I do. It's just such a big picture, and I think he will finally win a directing Oscar. He's only been nominated to director like once, right? I'm trying to think.
Yeah, it hasn't been very times. Yeah.
So I actually think this, because of the like monumental achievement that it is, I think he will win director for sure. I think Downey Jr. and Killian, I think they're all kind of locks for this. So I will just call it now. We'll say it'll win Best Picture and editing and directing, and the score was a little weird in places, but it worked for it. It was really intense, kind of like the whole Dunkirk thing. So
yeah,
it's really interesting. But yeah, I'll call it now. Best Picture, sure. But I can't think of any other movies that would be nominated. Can you, like, what's another front? Would you say Barbie? I mean, is that good?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was giving a nod. I wonder if the Spider-Man, Across the Spider-Verse, I don't know if it can slip into a Best Picture nomination. I think it's
Best Animated Film for sure.
Yeah. So,
and then the Ninja Turtles movie was really good in that regard.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, obviously there'll be Killers of the Flower Moon, will be coming out. It's
funny you say that. I'm just now listening to the book.
I highly recommend Oppenheimer. I mentioned kind of a couple of things I kind of got hung up with a little bit, but still, it's one of those movies. If it did win Best Picture, I'd totally support that. It's challenging, but also accessible, and I mean, it's kind of operating on all the technical levels. That it's everything coming together, including the writing, the actors, the directing, and everything like that. So yeah, it'll be a force to be reckoned with.
Well, Killian is a fantastic actor anyway. He's been in almost every Christopher Nolan movie. So it's really cool that he's finally like a big starring role, and he's just knocked it out of the park. So,
I've never seen Peaky Blinders, in which he starred in, and I heard a lot of people really
I've
like
seen
that.
A few episodes of that. It's like you would not believe the difference in character he is from his Oppenheimer performance. It's a totally just different person.
So,
but he's good as Scarecrow. I think that's what a lot of people know him as.
right. And he was in 28 Days Later, I think.
Yes, the first, the original one.
Yeah,
he's really good in that too.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good actor. So, well, thanks for taking the time to quickly talk about this. So,
of course. I know we're recording this fairly late. We're both tired, but I think this was a good discussion. So, I had fun. Seriously, anytime you want me back on, man, I love talking about movies. I could do it no matter what I'm feeling like. So
awesome. Well, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.